This video is designed so the quote regular person can get a glimpse or an idea of what's actually going on here with this virus madness. It doesn't match common sense. So we all can agree when the solution to something is demonstrated to be far worse than the thing itself, then the situation being presented is not what they say it is. We all can agree, everyone in the world, if the solution to something, the solution to a problem is far worse than what it's trying to fix, if that can be demonstrated, then everyone would have to agree that something else is going on. Now, there are a million examples of this. For example, let's say accidents on the road from drinking and driving went up tenfold in the last year because there was a new type of alcohol or absinthe, and people were just going out of their mind, and everybody knew somebody that was dying on the roads. Now, that's bad. Drinking and driving can kill people. But what if draconian measures were put in place? No driving for the entire United States after 8 p.m. Not until 5 a.m. the next morning. Checkpoints every mile. See, at some point, the measures become worse than the problem itself. And there are a million examples of that. There are also many examples on the other side of the coin that demonstrate that the world response by government to this is not normal. It's not commensurate with the problem. If the global government response is not normal, then by definition something else is going on here. And to the people screaming back at their computers, I'll respond to you. Well, tell me, Mr. Smart Guy, you tell me what's going on. See, that's not the purpose here. One can only be open-minded enough to explore what may actually be going on that may be far beyond a virus if one can see that the government response, coordinated in the same way around the world, isn't normal. It's not commensurate or equal to the problem. It's causing far more damage than the problem itself. I mean, we can see that happening out our window. Just letting people get a virus would be far better than what's going on now. The economy is being completely destroyed. Think the ruination of 40 to 50 million accounts for older Americans age 60 to 80. That's not worse than what do we have, 1 or 2 deaths in the state of Nevada? I mean, it is not commensurate. So you have to see or be open that something else is going on before you can really dive into what that is. But to start that process, you have to understand that the reaction here, the worldwide reaction of government, is not equal to the problem. So what's an example on the other side? Remember when we demonstrated that government can go too far with the drinking and driving example? Even if you didn't like my example, what if government sent people into your home once a week to check your liquor cabinet? At some point, we all can agree government can go too far. Okay. The other side of the coin is not doing anything. So if this government is so interested, and all the governments around the world are so interested in protecting health, safety, limiting deaths, then pick one of 1,000 examples where they're not doing anything. Lyme disease, for example. Now, of course, many people that get Lyme disease, that have the deer tick bite, they're diagnosed properly. They go on 4 weeks of antibiotics and they're cured, 100% cured. But what people don't realize is there are tens of thousands of people plagued by Lyme disease. Chronic pain, joint discomfort, paralysis, just a host of 100 different strange symptoms where it wasn't diagnosed properly, or they didn't take the antibiotic in time, or in some rare cases, even if they are treated properly, they can have a host or round of problems. So this plagues over 20-30-year period tens of thousands of people. And maybe, certainly it might not be as serious as what they're presenting now, but see, the point of this example is there's no government interaction at all to this. So maybe if things were real with corona, then the response to Lyme would be 1/4 of what they're doing now. There's nothing. There's no prohibitions on going into the woods at certain times of the year. There's no rush for a vaccine. Again, if you don't like my example, you don't know how many tens of thousands have been plagued by Lyme disease or misdiagnosis of it. Okay? There was a vaccine some nurses and doctors got 10 years ago, and they pulled it. There's been no, what have they done in 10 years? There's no new licensing for tour guides that take people through the woods, public service announcements, endless public service announcements about checking yourself for tick bites. See, they're doing nothing on that side of the coin. Per the official statistics, there are just over 7 billion people on Earth. For our example here, we'll round to 7 billion people on Earth. We're going to use the official numbers and statistics in this example. As of yesterday, 10,000 virus deaths worldwide. So 7 billion people on Earth, 9 zeros, 10,000 deaths, that's 4 zeros. You remove 4 zeros from 7 billion. So as of now, 1 in 700,000 die worldwide. As of now, I understand per their models of virus spreading and other countries becoming infected that this will go down. It'll get a bit worse. It's not going to get much worse than 1 in 600,000 or 1 in 550,000, but just take what we have now. 1 in 700,000 die. That's it. So as of now, the virus seriously affects 1 in 700,000 people. No, I'm not saying it seriously affects or disrupts the lives of those who get it and recover. So they have the flu for 3 or 4 days with 104 fever and then they cough for a week. Big deal. We've all gotten that many, many times. That's not earth-shattering life disruption. Okay? So it affects 1 in 700,000 as of now. That's it. How many of that 700,000, though, are affected by what governments are doing to society around the world with the implementation of new laws, executive orders, rules, regulations, new procedures? That is essentially locking down the entire world and destroying the world economy. So you start with the basic premise. Is 1 in 700,000 deaths worth destroying the entire economy? So what about the old adage of the needs of the many outweigh the needs of the few? How many of the 700,000, okay, are affected by the procedures being put in place by world governments? Every one, you could say. Other than remote areas in South America, Central America, remote areas in Africa, in terms of those, say, in any city around the world, every one is affected. And it's not just toilet paper shortages. The effects of this are very, very serious. If anybody has the liberal adage that if just one life can be saved, we can all pitch in. No, you're missing it. Okay, there are tens of thousands of people that don't have access to their medications, life-saving medications, because of the run on everything, the panic, the lockdown. Tens of thousands of people around the world are out of their blood pressure medication, or who knows how this has affected certain countries like Italy, or will continue to affect the United States. There are hundreds of thousands right now just in the United States that don't know how they're going to pay rent because they don't have a job where if they go and sit at home, the paycheck keeps coming in. They need to work to get paid. Look at the casinos alone in Las Vegas. Okay? I assure you, most of those workers, hundreds of thousands that are involved in the casino industry, and even if you're not working for the MGM Grand, if you work in Vegas, you live and die by the casino industry. Many of them have no work and they don't have the paychecks continue to come in. Tens of thousands there, maybe paycheck to paycheck, don't know how they're going to pay for their medications, pay for their food, or their rent. So you understand how very, very quickly, by a government locking down or a coordinated government lockdown of society, it becomes very, very quickly worse than the virus itself. You cannot adhere or cling to, if just one more life is saved, then we all have to pitch in. The people proclaiming that are people that have big jobs at Fortune 100 companies that are sitting at home working on their email, and their big paychecks are still coming in. They're not considering the millions of waitresses that have 3 kids at home who are making nothing, that don't know how they are going to make it through this. It is very easy to demonstrate that the global lockdown is far worse than any virus. See, the world economy, for the sake of 7 billion people, must go on. So what if hundreds of thousands of more around the world are dying or die because of this? Yes, you heard me. So what? That is not commensurate with basically putting the entire world into an economic collapse, of which, if it's not managed properly, with the amount of debt that these countries hold, could easily spiral down and make something like the Great Depression of 1929 look like a walk in the park. You don't mess with a fragile global just-in-time economy. They're not stupid. I'm talking to anybody that typically doesn't watch channels like this, that thinks that these draconian procedures and the locking down of societies and of cities actually makes sense and is commensurate with the threat of a virus. It's easy to see at this point it's not. Do you understand what I'm saying? They're not stupid. If they saw what was happening and they were on our side, they would loosen the rules. They're tightening the rules. Okay, that was the first part of the presentation. This video is designed so anybody listening to this could give it to the people around you, if you so choose. And when you give it to the people around you, most of them probably will still believe that the steps that governments are taking around the world are in line, are commensurate, that the person delivering the message here in this video certainly doesn't realize how serious the virus is. And the news would never overestimate the seriousness of anything, would it? When it talked about the killer bees coming in the late 70s, the Africanized bees coming up from Mexico, and we would all have to go into lockdown, that never happened. When they talked about how SARS would ravage itself around the world, and Zika virus for 3 months leading up to the Brazil Olympics, the leading story was Zika, 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 and people like Rory McIlroy didn't go to the Olympics because he was afraid of Zika, even though, as far as I'm concerned, he doesn't have a womb and can't give birth to a shrunken head microcephaly baby. Maybe he can. So SARS, avian flu, bird flu, swine flu, everything they asked us to panic about, like the ozone hole. But see, the news is just completely accurate in the assessment on how serious this is, because they have such a good track record in assessing the seriousness of everything else. Even people that believe that, this news is presenting the exact situation that's really going on. Fine. There's still many other things that you can't explain away. If you watched the evening news last night, China's in a celebration mode. No new cases in China, and billboards up all over China praising their hospital workers and their doctors and their first responders. Billboards, bus stop and train billboards of doctors. How can you announce it's over at this point? Is that how a virus or a pathogen works? It's just like, did George Bush land his plane in the middle of Tiananmen Square and get out and pop the hatch and say mission accomplished? That's what China's doing right now. Mission accomplished. But in terms of everything we've ever learned, that's not how viruses and germs and pathogens work. So aren't we told there's all these people carrying it right now in the United States and Italy? Well, what if, how big is China? Massive, massive. It's not just Wuhan. China has a billion people in other places, almost. hundreds of millions in other provinces per province. They all were exposed. They're all out of the woods. What if somebody from the US with corona just flew right in there now, northern China, or the other side of the Great Wall? On the good side. What if they flew in there? Couldn't be spread again? Why not? Anybody listening to this would say, of course it can be spread again. But then, if that was the case, you wouldn't have China announcing George Bush's mission accomplished. That's what they're doing. No new cases. They have billboards up praising the response. Well, wait a second. Why couldn't it come back and ravage thousands of square miles outside of Wuhan? It doesn't make sense what's happening. As long as there's one case, if the way they describe these pathogens to us, okay, how they work, how they're spread, sneezing, coughing, droplets, everything we've ever known from the moment of our birth, there is nobody out of the woods in any country as long as there's one case. Take smallpox, for example. Take measles or mumps or typhoid Mary and all these things. Nobody's out of the woods until it's gone or eradicated around the world. Smallpox eradicated, or polio, or whatever. Nobody's out of the woods. When did the rules of reality change? Where if a country can get to a point where there are no new cases, then they've won. See, they can put a big flag up and announce to the virus, because the virus is a sentient intelligence, that you can't come back here. We've beaten you. And the virus says, I want back in. There's many places I could go outside of Wuhan, but because, yeah, see, I have to follow the rules. I'm Mr. Virus, and I have to follow the rules. I can never find my way to northern China or on the other side of the Great Wall on the good side. Reality itself doesn't work the way they're presenting this case to us. Do you understand? Okay, it's time for people to become open to new ideas and to stop bowing down and taking the knee before Anderson Cooper and the people on the news. Guess what? I've got news for you. You assume they have your best interest at heart. Not always the case. You watched the news last night. 2 treatments exist now. Treatments that could cure or rapidly speed up one's ability to overcome the virus once they already have it. What? 2 treatments? And one has been around since 1950? Well, we've been told our entire lives that there is no treatment for a virus. We've been told our entire lives there is no treatment for a virus. A Tamiflu or something like that is a little 20% help. If you get it early, it can help you get better quicker. It doesn't cure anything. I'll say it one more time, because literally when I turn on my news, it's like the world is just changing in front of me. Like things I could rely on are gone, or reality changing in front of my eyes, then things that don't add up. It's now daily. So we've been told our entire lives there's no treatment for a virus, period. No one's ever broken from that. And last night on the news, there are 2 treatments that are being fast-tracked. Well, where were all the treatments for all the other viruses for the past 50 years then? And one has been available since 1950. And I understand whatever has been available, whatever they're saying has been around since the 50s. I understand maybe that can't be applied to other viruses. I'm not some pathogen Harvard PhD. I don't understand how this stuff works. I'm just pointing out to you, don't you think it's strange that we've heard one thing our entire lives, and weeks into the United States having this, there's 2 treatments? Okay. Now, again, people going to listen to what I'm saying and just explain that away as completely normal? No matter how you explain it away, I just want you to say, that's a little odd. I agree. Okay, I agree with the guy speaking. That's a little strange to hear your whole life there's nothing that can be done for a virus. And a few weeks into this virus, there are 2 treatments that are being fast-tracked. And that is not, I'm not even talking about the vaccine that they're working on. I'm talking about treatments. If somebody's sick, One is an Ebola treatment, but one's been around since 1950 that you could administer to a sick person. I'm not talking about a vaccine. Okay, this is very strange. And let me close with this. This entire presentation pointing out how many things just don't add up. All of this so far has assumed that these government measures actually work. The whole presentation has assumed they're just going too far, they're too restrictive, they're too draconian. The whole world economy is suffering, people can't get medication. The retirement accounts of hundreds of millions of people worldwide in their 50s, 60s, and 70s will be wiped out. They'll suffer for the rest of their lives. But through all of this, I'm saying they shouldn't be taking these measures to destroy everything in order to destroy a virus. See what I'm saying? You can go too far. Why not nuke every city in the United States? Be a great way to get rid of the virus. So you can go too far. But all of it assumed that the government measures actually work, which they don't. They don't work. Huddling at home in San Francisco or anywhere else only works if everybody's huddled at home. Right now you have tens of thousands of spring breakers all sweaty and grinding up against each other in Florida. You have people all over a country with 300 million people gathering together in groups and breaking the rules, and you can't control it. You can't control it. So, okay, anybody yelling at the presentation, this video, saying, well, you can slow the spread. That's worse. You slow the spread. Viruses, pathogens, germs, they are supposed to reach their crescendo and they die off through natural immunity, by people getting it. If you actually keep people from coming into contact, just the common sense that I can apply, I don't have a PhD from MIT and Harvard, but you prolong it. You prolong it. And why would any country be out of the woods as long as there's still one case? It just doesn't, none of it makes any sense to any degree if you just apply a bit of common sense. You can't lock down 300 million people perfectly. Therefore, you're always going to have a 10%, for example, that are going to break the rules, that whoever has the virus there will spread it. And you can't keep people huddled in place forever. So why would just keeping people home for 2 to 3 weeks do anything? They'll come out of their homes and there'll still be people that have it. They haven't been exposed and we'll have to go through it all over again. Or do you plan to keep people in place for 6 months to a year, or 2 to 3 or 4 or 5 years? Is that what they have planned? If you keep people at home for more than a few more weeks, more than they already have planned, the entire global economy is gone. Gone. In every case, in every way of looking at this, the measures being put in place are not commensurate with a cold and flu.